you kind of feel for Jose with what he's going through? I mean, you think he's going to have a top 15, top 20 team
Yeah.
and lose his three best players?
Yeah. I talked to him the other day, and nobody wants to see anybody go through something like this. I know how traumatic it can be to lose your best player, or lose a key player from a really good team. And I think they were starting to figure out what life after Kitty was going to be like, and getting a handle on it, and then it just piles on. So I think the latest one, I think that really probably hurt, maybe more than anything else, because it just came on top of what had already happened. So hopefully they can figure it out. And I mean, it's a lot of playing time for a lot of kids that maybe weren't going to play a lot, but maybe that bodes well for the future, but it certainly doesn't make things any easier right now.
You don't get too many tests in this league. Is it equally disappointing, given that they were ranked as high as 17, to see, that team in particular suffer those injuries?
Yeah, I mean, we've always had some great games with them. Regardless, I mean, the fact that we've won them all, there's always an element of competitiveness, and you always want to be playing teams that are at their best. When you play teams that are shorthanded, the wins still matter, and they still go on your record and all that, but and you still have to beat them. I mean, that there's no guarantee that just because somebody's shorthanded that you're going to beat them. But yeah, I mean, kids are competitors. They want to compete. They want to play against the other team's best players. They want to challenge themselves, and it's just unfortunate. It really is.
Do you focus more on yourself and things that you want to clean up for your own team?
I think at this time of the year, you have to do that. There's really no because you play so many games, you really can't try to make adjustments or figure out what do we have to do today to beat this team. I mean, that's part of it, don't get me wrong, but the general focus has always been for us, what do we need to do to get ready for March, and that hasn't changed. That won't change. And whether it was Houston this weekend or Cincinnati this week or USF this weekend, it's not going to affect our practices day to day. There'll be obviously some things that are unique to the team that we're playing, but the overall, the big picture is, what are we trying to get better at? What are we trying to find in our team that has to improve?
And what are those things? What are the primary things?
For us?
Yeah, kind of list them from top to bottom.
Well, I mean, it's hard sometimes to pinpoint certain things, but I've always said that when you have a certain type of championship team, okay, there's a spectrum that championship teams play in, and when championship teams are really good, they're flat out great. and everybody knows it, and everybody can see it, and everybody can feel it, just watching them play. When they're on top of their game, they're just flat out great. And then when there's a little bit of a dip, those championship teams are just really good. And on their worst days, they're good. So on the spectrum, we've been, in some games, we've been really, really good. I don't know that I've seen us play like in some of the teams that we've had in the past, where we've played an absolutely amazingly great game, where you could just look at us and say, that team has no flaws. That's a great team. But we played some really, really good games. But when we're not at our best, we're not nearly as good as we need to be. And that's the part that I think has to get fixed. There's somewhere in between. We've got to close that gap. And how does that happen? Well, sometimes the ball just stops moving. So what are we going to do about that? Sometimes the way we execute at both ends of the floor is inconsistent. What are we going to do about that? Sometimes the tempo of the game isn't what we want it to be, and we don't do anything about it. What are we going to do about that? So there isn't any, we have to rebound better. Or, we have to make sure we shoot the ball better every game. We have to stop dribble penetration better. I just think it's it's more of a the eye test when you look at our team. You can see the games where you go, this team's really good. And then you show up at a game and you watch us play for 40 minutes and you go, they won today, but didn't look good, didn't look right. They still have a lot of work to do. So if we can narrow that gap, and I understand I'm probably nitpicking, because if we win by 20 and people expected us to win by 40, the reaction is, Connecticut kind of sucked, but they won anyway. Whereas the majority of the world will go, it's a pretty good game by Connecticut. And they beat a team on the road by 20. So I'm not talking about the actual spread of the game. I'm talking about passing the eye test every single night.
For the eye test, for those of us who aren't terribly sophisticated, you can usually see it when the movement slows down.
Exactly.
When player movement and
That's
ball
right.
movement.
That's right. And that's the number one area where I think great teams don't get bogged down. The ball is always moving, and there's always a flow to it. The next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And the defense is constantly trying to catch up, constantly on their heels. They never know where the next bucket's coming from. And when that isn't happening, we become very predictable. And when we become predictable, we become easy to play against. And that's what gets you in really, really in trouble as the season goes on and the teams get better and you're scouted more and you get closer to March, and if you become predictable, years and years I've said to all you guys that have been covering this for a long time, when I was a kid, the best line I ever heard was Hank Stram: in order to win it all, you have to have it all. If you're lacking something, it's going to show up. At some point, it's going to show up. So, do we have it all? I don't think so. It doesn't mean you can't get lucky and win the whole thing, because I don't know who does have it all. But the secret in going to practice every day is trying to minimize those times when those things that you absolutely positively have to do, they don't get done. A perfect example is Crystal had 10 assists the other night. Somebody would say, well, how come she didn't score more? Well, that's not the point. The point is, the more plays that that kid makes for everybody else, and the more she makes other people better. When somebody's really good, like she is, she doesn't have to worry about, am I going to get enough shots? Am I going to score enough points? Because she knows she can do that. The trick for her is, can I get other people shots? Can I make them better? So that constant evolution of that, and I don't think there's been, to be honest with you, I don't think there's been a game, even the game at Notre Dame, where I would say, you walk out of there, and again, that's early in the season. So we're just like everybody else. We're just like everybody else. We're always trying to figure out. And just because you can get a lot better, that doesn't automatically equate that you're not very good. But in the world that we live in, you're either really, really good or you're bad. There's no in between. Sometimes it's okay to be in between, Like, we weren't great today, but we were really good. I like that.
So it's something.
You know how hard it is to be great every night? Just ask yourself and ask any of your friends. Yo, you great every day? Hell no. You know how hard it is to be great every day? And yet the expectation is, you guys need to be great every day. Well, how about if we just win every day? Nope. You need to be great every day.
Do you know you've only won 1,001 of your last 1,100 games?
No, I didn't know that.
No?
1,001 and what?
99. In the last
Yeah, but how
4.
many of those 1,001 were we like great?
I don't know.
Most of 4 years.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what the pessimist would ask you. Yeah, you won 1,001 games, but it's not like you were great in all of them.
Now, the best one was when you scheduled Arkansas Little Rock. I pointed out it's going to be the 40th state you played in. Guy tweets back to me, winless in 10 states. Fire Geno.
Winless in 10 states. There you go. See what I mean? Where have we not won?
Never been to North Dakota.
Never been. The one that was shocking was you've never been to Michigan.
Yeah.
Other than that,
You sure it's only 10? Have we ever played in Vermont?
yeah,
When?
maybe not you, but they have played in Vermont.
Who's they?
Connecticut.
I don't count before me.
Yeah.
Come
Let's
on.
not get into that. I don't know when the
I
last
don't
time
count
you played
before
Vermont
me.
is. That's
I know
that's
we
my
have
answer.
never played in Vermont. We have never played in Delaware
Right.
since I've been here.
Not played Delaware.
North
at all.
Dakota, South Dakota,
Wyoming.
Wyoming, Montana, Mississippi,
Montana, New Mexico.
New Mexico,
Idaho.
Idaho. Yeah.
Idaho. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, last year was first. Well, a few years ago was the first time in
Alaska. We've never played in
Alaska.
Alaska.
So, but the one no one could get was Michigan.
Michigan. Yeah, that's a tough one.
So,
That is a tough one. I wonder why that is.
I don't
It's
know.
interesting.
Kim Born's Rico.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I have a question. I thought of this the other night when you used Kyla first off the bench, and I understand that the first 5 have certainly separated themselves from the bench, but you've never been willing to pass, like, to start your 5 best players, and I think Pam Weber, Caroline Doty, and Oliver. And I know how much you've always liked going to your bench with the idea of getting better.
Correct.
Have you considered, and I bring up Kyle because she seems to be the best candidate for it. She's the oldest, seems to have more of a clue thing. Have you considered starting her, using her the first 3-4 minutes? That way there's some time for the bench to get in, and that if you go to whoever you choose to bring off the bench, and I would think Megan would be the person, would be the option, that you would get better. You would be better offensively. Have you even looked at that kind of option, or is it just too much separation for that? Or would Megan not deal with it that well? Is she better as a starter than she is as a reserve?
I mean, you would like to think that you have enough versatility in your roster that you can make moves like that. And generally, we have been able to do that more times than not. There's been some great players that didn't start for us and came off the bench and changed the game tremendously. You know, Nikisha Sales or Diana Taurasi, her freshman year, or Asia Jones, or, Tamika Williams. I could go on, and Shea Ralph. I could go on and on and on. How many guys we used to bring off the bench that just lit it up, when they came in.
Well, even, I brought up Caroline's name, like, who are you bringing in? Mariah Jefferson.
Yeah. But the reality of the situation is we're not in that situation right now. We're not in that situation. So, we're having to manage the situation that we're in, and having to do the best that we can with what we have right now, whether it's because of talent, because of personality types. I just don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's going to change, but you never know. But right now, we're not in a situation to be able to do that. And it's not the best situation to be in, but it's the situation we find ourselves in. Ask yourself a question. If Azure had stayed, then obviously that's a different situation. Now that changes a lot of things. That changes a lot of things. So, who knows? But right now, this is what we got. This is what we're going to do.
Does consistency play a role in that? Like, you're searching for consistency with Megan and Kristen?
Well, yeah, I mean, but I don't know that it's any different than anyone else in those situations generally. Anytime you have a freshman come in, they're always going to have highs and lows. I don't know, how many points Kristen Williams is averaging, or what her shooting percentage is, or any of that other stuff. But I bet you if you match her up against all the other freshmen in the country, she's probably close to the top. So I think she's being what you would expect from a freshman to be. It's not easy being in our lineup and thinking that, every game we're going to get her 15, 20 shots. Go ask those other three, hey, how would you guys feel if you just came down and tried to get Kristen 20 shots every night? That'd be like the French Revolution. So I think she's doing great. But again, there's too much that she doesn't know how to handle to expect any more than that right now. And Megan didn't play enough minutes last year to be able to just do what Fisa and Lou did as sophomores. It's just not. It's not the same scenario. So, with Meg, it's a process of learning how to play 30 minutes when you're not necessarily the best player on the floor, and how do you fit into all that? And that takes time. And I thought she was great the other night, better than she's been maybe all year. She was great. I hope she can do that again and again and again. That would elevate us more than anything you can imagine if we knew we were going to get that kind of effort, that kind of work from her.
You sense the bench, just confidence-wise, is is it a low point, or that unit as a whole?
What's that?
The second five, the bench. I mean, do you sense confidence-wise that it's just not there either? Or?
Yeah, I think everybody. Again, circumstances tend to conspire to put you where you are. So, in the whole recruiting process and in the whole planning your team out, I don't know that when we recruited a few of the guys that are our second group, that we envisioned that early in their careers or at some point in their careers they'd be the sixth guy off the bench or the seventh guy off the bench. That I don't think was how we approached it. I think we approached it as we need to develop these kids, and if they do, great, they're going to give us some depth. And if they don't, then they're going to struggle with playing time. We didn't envision, hey, we need these three or we need these four guys to be able to play significant minutes and be able to add to our lead every night out. So I think the reality of the situation is we don't have, that scoring mentality coming off the bench, which is okay. It is what it is. That's what we have. So that's what we're going to have to deal with, and we're going to have to find roles for them that still allow them to contribute, but not maybe necessarily contribute just by scoring points.
Is there some part of the circle around that they don't play very much? When they get in, they're afraid of screwing up, so they don't try to shoot? I mean, because it's not like they're all awful shooters from the start.
No. They play in practice. They play in the games exactly like they play in practice. So it's not like they get gun shy when they get in the games. When they get in the game, what you see in the game is exactly what you see in practice. So they're consistent in that respect. It's not like, these guys have stage fright. It's what they do in practice. And how do you solve that dilemma? I don't know. Ever since I've been here at Connecticut, ever since I've been coaching, there's always kids that their personality or their temperament is such that it holds them back way longer than it needs to.